Thank you so much for coming to this presentation. My name is Jody Pavel. I am the Associate Director for Partnerships in the Career and Leadership Development Center. And so I have been with Ohio University in the Career and Leadership Development Center for 8 years. And so my primary role in that office is to oversee some of our campus partnerships, and I've been really lucky to get to work closely with the College of Arts and Sciences, so I'm excited to be part of this event. And mostly I just do some of these events like this, but then just a lot of career coaching and leadership coaching one-on-one with students. And so for tonight's presentation, I'm going to talk about LinkedIn and give a pretty good overview of LinkedIn, but then also talk about how you can really use it to maximize your networking with alumni, employers, and also use that for a job and internship search, as well as some other things that you can use LinkedIn for. So if I see that a lot of you have your laptops, feel free to be on LinkedIn. Even on your cell phone. I know there's a LinkedIn app as I'm going through this, because there could be things that I talk about that really quickly you want to click through with me, or you want to, if I'm talking about how to really maximize your profile section and you want to be able to pull up your profile and make edits in real time, that is totally fine with me if you're using your technology during this presentation. So feel free. I want you to really be able to maximize this workshop to get the most out of your LinkedIn profile. Okay, so I am going to talk about how to, really the two main things I'm going to focus on is how to really maximize your own LinkedIn content, and some of the kind of like my top tips for making that profile really outstanding for employers and alumni to look at. And then I'm also going to cover how to use the job search function on LinkedIn, because there's kind of some tricks to that we can go through, as well as the alumni search features and specifically the Ohio University Alumni Tool. I'm going to go through how to use that kind of step by step. So if you do have questions as I'm going through the presentation, please feel free to stop me and ask those questions, and we will try to address those as quickly as we can. I'm really quickly going to cover some highlights of the CLDC just while I have you in the room so that you know how you can access some of our services and resources. So like I said before, we do offer coaching, which is a one-on-one service for students, and you can meet with us about anything related to your career development process. So I don't know exactly who all is in the room, but anywhere from the point of you may be still trying to choose a major or decide what you're going to do with your major, all the way to getting internships, jobs, applying for those things. How do you write your resume, cover letter? How do you network and use LinkedIn to maybe negotiating your first salary? So any of those topics you can cover one-on-one with a coach in a coaching appointment. We also offer lots of workshops through our leadership training programs on all kinds of different topics, ranging from team development to ethics and values to emotional intelligence, as well as some really career-specific topics around resume building, networking, interviewing, that kind of preparation. And I'll just mention Handshake, because you can find out about all of these events through Handshake. That's where you would schedule coaching. Handshake is our career management system. And so that is what Ohio University uses for you to be able to connect with employers for job and internship opportunities, but it's also how we connect with you to share our events and resources, and how you can connect with us for coaching. So is everybody here on Handshake? Yeah, love it. That is like almost everybody. That is my favorite thing. So I didn't even need to say that, because you already all know what I'm talking about. But please continue to use Handshake. That will be a really positive resource for you moving forward in the future. Before I jump in, are there any questions about CLDC resources and how to utilize those? Okay, great. So let's start talking about LinkedIn. How many of you currently have a LinkedIn? Okay. So almost everybody. That's awesome. Those of you that do have a LinkedIn, how many of you feel really confident about using that, or feel like you're using it sort of to all of its best advantages? Okay, so less confident on that one. That's okay. That's what I'm going to try to help you with today. And also, if you don't have a LinkedIn yet, that's okay too, and I'm going to get you up to speed on what that looks like. So for those of you that do have it, You may know some of this, but basically it's a social networking site. So it is similar to something like a Facebook or other social media. However, it's very professionally oriented, and so it is really recommended that you use it for professional reasons, whereas Facebook is, if most of you have that, that's obviously more of a personal networking platform. And so what you'll see on LinkedIn and how the platform works is actually really similar to how you engage with people on Facebook, or you post things, or you comment on things, or you message people. Those things are really similar, but what the content that you're talking to them about, that tends to be pretty different, okay, or how you're using that resource. But I do like to compare it to that. So LinkedIn, and kind of the case for LinkedIn and why you want to be on here, is that this is a very widely used resource in sort of the world of networking and employment. And it's gotten to the point where you pretty much need to be on LinkedIn to be really successful with networking and job and internship searching. So there are over 467 million users worldwide. So it's another cool thing, is that this is sort of a universal platform. Over 4 million students and recent graduates are that have recently graduated are using LinkedIn. 57% of companies have a LinkedIn page, and 77% of hiring professionals are using social media in their search process. And so, I'll talk about that a little bit, but basically, this is a way for employers to really engage with candidates, and this is a really useful resource for them because it's really cost effective for them to use LinkedIn to research the people that they're interviewing for internships and jobs, but also allows them a lot of access to information quickly. So it's a big recruiting tool for employers. And so that's another reason that you really want to be on this platform, is because the employers are using it. So what that kind of looks like when you apply for a position, how many people have applied for an internship or a job? Almost all of you. Okay, great. So when you apply for, your first job after graduation, your first internship, this is typically what that process could look like. Okay, so you apply for a job. You've been working on your resume, your cover letter, you get that all ready to go. You apply online. A search committee reviews your application typically. Some kind of group of people, or maybe it's just 1 or 2 people, are going to review those. Then usually the next thing they're going to do is look for you on LinkedIn, or they're going to Google you. Okay? How many of you, when you first meet someone or you hear about a new thing, the first thing you do is you Google it? Yeah, me too. Okay? So that is the same thing with people when they're looking at employment. They're going to Google you and see what comes up. And what you want to come up in a job search is something like LinkedIn. That's what you want them to find, and less of your personal things like your Twitter, your Instagram, your Facebook, like that kind of stuff. So if you start using LinkedIn and you're really active on there and you're posting and you're commenting, that will start to kind of trump those other social media platforms, to where this is the first thing that would pop up if an employer were to Google you and search for your name. Okay, so after they've checked that, that's when they decide if you get an interview, and then they check your references, and then they decide you're a successful candidate. But as you can see, kind of this background checking of you and searching for you, that happens pretty early on in the process. And so I'm going to talk about why it's really important and how you can kind of maximize your profile to be able to make that good. Sometimes that's your first impression, that they're getting of you is through your LinkedIn platform. Okay, so you can make that really positive first impression. Okay, so I'm going to talk a little bit about what goes into a profile. Then I'm actually going to pull up my own LinkedIn profile and show that to you so that you can see that. And we'll just kind of go through that piece by piece. So the first thing that I want to talk about is the profile picture and headline. Okay, so when you look at a LinkedIn profile, like if you've ever searched for someone, what's the first thing that you notice on their profile? The picture, right? And so it is really, really important that you have a professional photo on your LinkedIn profile. Okay, so one of the statistics from LinkedIn tells us that you're 14 times as likely to have your profile viewed if there's a photo. Okay. I will say from like an employer perspective, when I've been leading search committees, or even when I've been hiring students for jobs, I will always check and see if they're on LinkedIn. And if someone doesn't have a picture, then I'm kind of like, is this a real account? Like, is this an old account? And I don't know, and then I don't know what to think, you know, so it kind of like stops me in my tracks. And that doesn't mean that I won't continue to look at their profile or that they wouldn't get hired, but it is something that just stops me for a second. I'm like, huh, that's kind of strange. I wonder why they don't have a picture. So you definitely want to have that. And it doesn't have to be a fancy photo that you're getting like professionally taken at like a JCPenney studio or something like that. It really can, with the way that iPhones are nowadays. You can get a really nice LinkedIn photo of you, as long as it's you by yourself and you're professionally dressed and well groomed. In that photo, that will pass. But I will also plug our event Thursday, the Alumni Networking Reception, which is coming up this week as part of Can Week. Is everyone registered to attend that event? Most people? Okay. Yeah, you can still go if you didn't register. And we're doing free LinkedIn photos at that reception. And so that would even be even better than the iPhone picture. And then you can have that for your LinkedIn profile. Okay, so that's Thursday from 3:30 to 7. Is that right? Okay. So definitely check that out. So photo is really important. And you do want to look, you know, like friendly. So don't forget to smile in that picture. And you just want it to be you by yourself. So nothing with your friends in it, nothing with like your pets, that kind of thing, just you by yourself. Okay. And then the next thing is your headline. Okay. And your headline is 100% customizable, but a lot of people don't know that, because if you don't customize your headline, it actually defaults to the title of your first job position that's listed in your LinkedIn profile. And sometimes that may not be what you want to be your headline. Okay. So you definitely want to customize that. And what you can do is, you know, put something that really describes who you are, who you're aspiring to be. For a lot of students, I see them put something like, maybe like, let's say you're majoring in chemistry, and they may put like future chemistry professional or something like that. That was probably a bad example, but just something that they're aspiring to be, instead of maybe your last job was as a cashier at Kroger, and so that's the first job popping up on your profile. And if you don't change your default, it would say maybe Jody Pavel, cashier at Kroger. You know, so not that there's anything wrong with that, but you may not want that to be your headline, because you want to be able to customize that to employers. Okay. So those are the first two things that people notice. And that's also what they see when they search for you on LinkedIn. They see your picture, your name, and your headline. Okay. Any questions about that? Okay. Definitely customize those. Next is the profile summary. This is really important. This is something that a lot of people leave off of their LinkedIn profile, and they don't even fill this part out. And as a student, I would really, really encourage you to take the time to do your LinkedIn summary. How many people have heard of an elevator pitch? Everybody, great. This is the best group. So the concept of an elevator pitch, if you're in an elevator with someone, you have 30 seconds to make your case for why they should engage with you or why they should hire you. What would you say to them, right? So you can kind of think of your profile summary as your elevator pitch, okay? So what do you want to convey very concisely in this message that kind of captures what they'll see in your profile and shares with them about the opportunities that you're looking for in the future? Okay, so what are you motivated by? What are you good at? What type of experience do you have? And what do you want to do next? Okay, so those are some of the topics or the prompts that you could use for yourself on your profile summary. So I typically encourage, like, let's say you're looking for an internship. I would encourage you to think about almost using this as like a mini cover letter, okay? Where you're sort of customizing this to the type of internship you might be looking for, the opportunities or the type of people you want to connect with. Talk about some of your relevant accomplishments or maybe the skills you have or specific examples of your work related to the types of internships you're looking for, okay? And then make it clear in that summary what you are looking for, so that if people on the employer end are kind of doing a search, you may come up in their search as someone that fits the criteria for the positions that they're looking for. Okay, so that's the summary section. Next is your experience. Okay, how many of you have a resume? Again, great, that's good. Essentially, the experience section is really similar to what you're probably putting on your resume. So mostly in this section, you're gonna put work experiences or jobs or internships that you've had. This is maybe a little bit different from a resume, because sometimes on the resume, you'll mix and match, you know, clubs that you're in, volunteer experience, and jobs. You can kind of merge those into the same section. But on LinkedIn, they have actually very specific sections for all of those things. So when it says experience on LinkedIn, it's really looking for job experience, okay? So part-time jobs that you've had, summer jobs, jobs that you have on campus would fit in here, as well as any internships or full-time jobs would make a lot of sense in this section. Some like tips for you. I see a lot of students when they come in with their profiles, they just put where they worked and what their title was, but they don't say anything about what they did. And really that's not super useful for the employer or for an alumni that's looking at your resume, or sorry, your LinkedIn page. Because if I'm not familiar with where you worked or what your internship was, I have no idea what you did or what your skill set is. So my recommendation would be to put at least 2 to 3 bullet points that describe your skills and experience, and to really focus on highlighting your transferable skills. When you think about jobs that you've had in the past, I know when I was a undergraduate student, the only jobs that I had had until I got an internship my junior year were in retail. Like I worked at Maurice's, and I worked at a restaurant as a server, and I worked on my family farm. Okay, so that was my job experience, which, well, actually was a little bit relevant to my major at the time, because I was an agricultural education major. So some of that was relevant, but like for example, the serving job was not. Okay, so on my resume or on your LinkedIn, instead of highlighting really job-specific skills, like I see a lot of profiles that say like maintain the cleanliness of the restaurant, or answer the phone for carry-out orders. Those are good, but those may be really job-specific skills if you're not applying for another server or restaurant job. Instead, you want to focus on skills that may be more transferable to other internships or jobs you're applying for. So for example, in a server position, something you could highlight would be customer service skills, okay? Customer service skills are highly sought after in most career fields. Maybe you highlight communication skills because you had to communicate with your customers. You could highlight teamwork and team building skills because maybe you worked with a group of 3 other employees, and sometimes you were responsible for training new employees. Okay, so you want to highlight those skills that are more transferable. And you know, if you're working at Donato's and you have a really job-specific skill of getting 100 pepperonis on that pizza, that's not going to be as relevant as customer service, right? So you want to focus on those transferable skills. So as you write those bullet points, you want to highlight those and any accomplishments you have from those positions, okay? So maybe if you work in the dining hall, maybe you just started as, you know, a freshman there and you're just regular dining hall worker, but now you're a student manager. You would want to highlight that promotion and that accomplishment, okay? The other thing that's really cool about LinkedIn that you can't do on your resume is that you can make it kind of alive and interactive. So if you have any, like if you had an internship or something and you did a project that came out of that, maybe you had to produce a video, or maybe you did a marketing campaign, or maybe you did a research experiment, whatever that might be. If you have any of those materials, you can actually upload that and connect it to your job, which is really cool because then you can give specific examples of your work right there on your LinkedIn page. And this becomes more of like a living portfolio, okay? And I have a couple of those things on my profile, so I'll show you how you can do that. Any questions about experience? Okay. Education section, you'll definitely want to have one of these on here, especially since you're a current student. You want to highlight what you're receiving your degree in. If you have your education, you might, LinkedIn says that you have 10 times the chance of getting profile views of someone that does not have your education section on LinkedIn. This is like the easiest thing to fill out because it usually like kind of auto-populates once you start typing in. So you would just put Ohio University, and then you want to put your degree. And this is actually, I don't love this example because we always recommend that you put the formal title of your degree. So instead of like a BA in economics, you would actually spell out like Bachelor of Arts in Economics. And then you want to put your range of dates and your expected graduation, okay? Sometimes other experiences can go in your education section. So if you've like studied abroad or done like a summer education program, those are experiences that can go in your education section. Sometimes you might put academic certificates in that section. You can list minors there. All of those things could go in the education field on LinkedIn. Another reason that this is really important to fill out is that later when I show you the alumni networking tool, this is how you'll get connected to Ohio University's tool, is by specifying that your education is at Ohio University. Okay, so that's another reason that's really important to fill out. Okay, the next couple of sections I'm going to talk about I think are really, really great for students. And I love these features because I think it makes LinkedIn really work for you, where sometimes it feels like it's hard to do that on your resume because you might not feel like the resume can be tailored to all your experiences as a student, okay? But LinkedIn makes that really, really easy because it prompts you to put in experiences that students have, like student organizations, okay? So I really like the organizations section. So if you've joined any clubs, if you're involved in anything on campus, or outside of campus that you've gotten involved in, you can put that in the organization section. And just like the experience section, I recommend giving a little bit of description to that, or else we're gonna have no idea what this is or what you did, okay? This is another one where if you have something tangible that you could add to the profile, like a project that you did, a philanthropy that your student organization works with, an event that you put on that you have like a flyer for or something like that, you can add all of those things to LinkedIn. Okay, so I really like this. Definitely add those. Skills and endorsements. I recommend adding some of these to your profile. You can actually, I think it's unlimited how many you put in, but I wouldn't put like 25 skills in here. I would recommend picking like your top 5 to 7 skills that you feel like are really your top skills that you would want in an employer and alum to know about, and putting those on here. And then your connections can actually go in and endorse you for these skills and say, yeah, I have seen, if one of my skills was career coaching, maybe one of my colleagues would go in and said, yeah, I've observed Jody in career coaching and I endorse her for this skill. She knows how to do that, okay? So this is really good. So I would say, again, 5 to 7 skills is probably a good place to start, maybe like no more than 10. Any questions about that? Okay, this is another one you can kind of customize and think about what are the skills they're looking for in my field, and those are the skills that I have that I want to highlight. Okay. Yes?
So should they be career-oriented skills or just skills that maybe give a little more insight into who you are?
Who you are. That's a really good question.
The question for the people on video.
Oh yeah, I can repeat the question. So the question was, should the skills really be more career-oriented, or should they really be giving more insight to who you are as a person? I do kind of think those two things may go hand in hand, but I would say it depends on what you're using like the platform for and what kind of connections you're looking for at the time. I would say if you're like really in a place where you're seeking an internship or job, I would make them more career-oriented towards the types of positions you're applying for. But if you're really on here to build networking connections and that's kind of your thing that you're using this for, it's okay to get a little bit more personal with it, or to maybe like have more fun with it. But I think that's just kind of a personal decision, and you have to ask yourself, what are the top, 5 or 6 things I would want to highlight about myself? Good question. Okay. Recommendations. This is one that a lot of people don't even know about or know that they can add to their LinkedIn profile. But you can actually seek recommendations from your LinkedIn connections that can get added directly to your profile page. So I'll show you what that looks like on my page. But essentially, one of the biggest barriers for this is that people don't just wake up in the morning and say, like, I'm going to get on LinkedIn and recommend some people today. Like, that's how I'm going to spend my time. So typically, you have to ask people for a recommendation on LinkedIn, just like you would ask them for a letter of recommendation or something like that. But this is something that you can ask supervisors, past managers, academic advisors, professors, faculty that you're connected with, even your classmates. So like if you've worked on a group project with a group of people, it would be great if you got one of your teammates to write you a recommendation and say like, hey, this person is really good to work with on a team. They really are great at working in groups. Like they had these ideas for our project. So even your classmates would be good people to write recommendations for you. Or people, your colleagues that you work with. So if you do work at the dining hall, maybe having one of your peers that works with you write a recommendation about what it's like to work with you. All of those things look really good to employers. Okay, so I'll show you how you can kind of go in and ask for a recommendation. But another tip that I have for you is to also recommend other people. Because if you recommend someone, you're more likely to receive a recommendation back from them. And it also kind of just shows that like goodwill that you're willing to build a network. Networking is not a one-way street, and what can I get and take from people? It's really this two-way, mutually beneficial partnership. And so think about how you can also recommend other people. Okay. Any questions about that? Has anybody done this before and got some recommendations? Okay. I would challenge you to make that a goal to get at least 1 or 2 recommendations to really boost up your profile. Okay, and then finally I'm going to talk about profile accomplishments that you can add. Again, another great section for students, okay, because you can add things that are really relevant to you. So honors and awards, this would be where maybe you put scholarships that you've received, things like the Dean's List, any academic awards that maybe your college or department gives out. Those can all go in this area. Courses are also a really good option for students. What I would not suggest that you do is put every single course that you've taken at Ohio University, but just the ones that are really relevant to the types of employment that you're seeking. Or that really you've done some projects in them or something that you can highlight on your LinkedIn that show your skill set. So this is another really good section to upload samples of work. So like I met with a history major yesterday to work on his LinkedIn, and he didn't have a ton of examples or things on there. And so I said, well, what about your courses? Because he hasn't had an internship. And he was like, yeah, well, I've taken this, I did research in this class, I had to write this 15-page paper in this other class, and I was like, well, let's put some of that on LinkedIn, because right now, those are the best samples of your work. So any of those things really you can add to your profile, again, to make it more of this portfolio. Yes?
Would you compare the courses section of the accomplishments to the nature of a CV, perhaps?
That's a good, so the question was, would I compare the courses section to what that might look like on the CV? I would say yes. I think it's really similar to that. Sometimes on a CV, it's more of courses that you've taught or instructed instead of courses that you've taken. This really for students would be courses that you've taken. So I think that would be the main difference. And then also that you can actually give examples of your work would be the difference here. Good question. And then finally, projects. So if there hasn't been like a space where it's made sense to put a project that you've worked on, maybe like a research project that you've done or something like that, you could put that in this project section. Okay, and I'm going to show you how to add these sections. Okay, so I'm actually going to go to LinkedIn right now. anyone wants to follow along. Okay, so we are in my LinkedIn right now, and I'm going to just go to my profile. And again, you'll see everything that I've talked about. You'll kind of see in my profile on here. So again, I have a headshot. I have my headline. For me, I wanted it to be the title of my most recent position, so that's what I use as my headline. And then I have my about summary section here, and basically I kind of talk about what I do for work and some of the strengths that I have that describe me. And then I move into my experience section. And as you can see, I have a couple bullet points for each section that sort of describe what my work experience is. And then here are some examples of how you can add some content to your LinkedIn page. So these, I'm not gonna pull these up right now, but these are both YouTube videos that I'm in the video. They're both actually really embarrassing videos where I just kind of pop up and I'm doing something. But they talk about what we do at the Career and Leadership Development Center, and then also the classes that I've taught here. And so if if I was actively job searching, an employer might watch that video about the CLDC and then be able to really get an idea of what my work experience has been and what I've done. So it's kind of a cool thing that you can add to this profile. Then I have my education section, and as you can see, when you fill this in, the logo from the school will pop up here, and that's how you know that you've put in the right university. And again, this is how you connect to alumni, is by having this be part of your profile. Okay. I didn't talk about licenses and certifications, but some of these might make sense for you. So if you do have any licenses or certifications, you can add those to your profile. I see a lot of students with CPR, for example. That's something you could put on here. And if you've done any other types of certifications, you can add those as well. Volunteer experience, we also didn't talk about that one. That's another big one that students might have, so definitely add that to your profile. Have some skills on here, and then this is what the recommendation section actually looks like. So you can see on here recommendations that you've been given, and then also the ones that you have given to other people, which is cool. And I think that, I don't know this for a fact, but I think the reason that they include the recommendations that you've given on your profile is so that people can see that you're invested in others in this community and how you talk about working with other people. Okay, so it's really good to also give other people recommendations. And like I said, you can ask people for recommendations, and you will probably have to do that because people, they're not going to actively just go recommend you. So don't be afraid to do that. Just think of it as part of your action steps and part of your job search process is to ask folks for those recommendations. So to do that, you just click on this, and then if I wanted to ask my current boss, I would just type in his name and then select how I know him. And then I would submit this. Okay, I'm not going to do that because he'll be like, why'd you do that? So that's how you ask for a recommendation. To add any of these profile sections or even see what the options are, all you have to do is come up here to this blue button, and you can see all the different sections that you can add to your resume. Mine are kind of telling me that a lot of mine are checked off or that I don't need to add them because I already have them, but you can see things on here that I could still be adding, like more work experience, more licenses. This is where you add the skills. Accomplishments, definitely pay attention to this section because I think this is where there's a lot for students. I don't have any languages on my profile because I don't speak any other languages, but you might, and so that would be a good section to add for you. And the rest of these, I think we talked about except for patents. Anybody have a patent? Haven't seen one of those on a student's profile recently, so I always think it's funny that that's a option. I'm like, how many people have patents that we're putting this on LinkedIn? Yeah, it's kind of a fun twist. This is another option for you to use to request a recommendation is right here. Okay, so that's really the basics of the profile and what that looks like. Are there any questions about profile sections before I move into the next kind of phase of the presentation? Okay, yes?
So the educational section, should you go with your highest degree and exclude your lesser degrees, or list them all?
That's a great question. So the question was, in the education section, should you just list your highest degree or should you list all of your education? My recommendation would be to at least list all of your higher education. So if you have a bachelor's, an associate's, master's, PhD, any of those I would list. Especially like, for example, for my undergraduate degree, I want to list that I was a student at Ohio State so that I still have access to all the Ohio State groups and pages and that I can still connect with all those alumni. So you definitely want to have those on there. Some students will still include their high school education. You can do that. You definitely don't need to do that. The only advantage would be maybe if you're going to go into education or teaching and you may apply for a job at your home school that you went to high school at, maybe put that on there. Otherwise, you don't necessarily need to have your high school education. Okay. Good question. Any other questions about profile? Yes?
So I'm adding courses right now, and
Okay.
it asks me, there's an associated with section, and then the options, like a drop-down menu, and those options are like my job experience.
Oh, interesting.
So what does that mean? Like,
Is there,
should I
can
do
you
that?
skip that and just not put
I
anything?
could, but I didn't know if I should or
Yeah,
I
so if
shouldn't.
you haven't had a job that's affiliated with any of those courses that you're putting in there, then I would just skip it and not put anything.
Okay.
Yeah,
So it's just jobs that like that class.
is related to.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Good question. Okay. Anything else? Okay. I'm going to pull my presentation back up. Another way to sort of maximize your profile views but also get the most out of your LinkedIn is to join some groups on LinkedIn. So there are thousands, probably more than thousands of groups on LinkedIn that you can join. Basically anything that you can think of related to your interests with career, personal, those kinds of things, you can join groups related to those. For example, groups that I'm in, if you scroll down all the way down, you can see interests in groups that I follow. Most of mine are related to higher education, career counseling, academic advising, agriculture, just anywhere that I've had some like career experience, that's where these pop up. And so when you follow groups, something really cool about that is that you can connect with the members in those groups to do networking. But also in groups, a lot of times there's forums and topics and discussions that you can engage in. So if you have a question, you can kind of ask those within those groups, or you can get information from those. But then a lot of groups also have places where jobs are posted. So it's a really good way to kind of just be active on LinkedIn and to engage a little bit more to meet more connections. So I would really encourage you to join some groups. In the career classes I teach, I always challenge them to join at least 5 groups. And that's a good way to start building your LinkedIn connections and just learning a little bit more about your industry. Okay, so I am gonna pull this back up. Next, I'm gonna talk a little bit about navigating LinkedIn and how you actually use it for job searching and networking. So I'm gonna talk about engaging with the platform, sharing job preferences, using the job and internship search tools, the alumni search tool, and then messaging, how to use that feature. So I am going to move through those in 20 minutes. But actually this part will be a little bit shorter than the profile sections piece, so we should be good on time there. So I'm going to go back to my LinkedIn. And if you go to the homepage, you'll see here that it kind of starts out with this feed that you can access. This feed is generated by the groups I follow, the things that I've chosen that I'm interested in, and then also the connections I have and what they're posting. So you don't want to just build your LinkedIn and then just let it sit there. Okay, you want to comment on things, you want to engage in discussions on LinkedIn, you want to make your own posts, sharing articles related to the field that you're in. Those are all ways to kind of engage with the platform and become like a LinkedIn influencer. And so don't just create your account and then do nothing with it. Okay, that's one of my big tips, is you really want to be engaged with it. And you know, if you're in those groups, read some of the discussions or articles that get posted and comment on them. That's a great way to get more views of your profile and to gain some connections, okay? Also, again, what I said before, like the more active you are, the more LinkedIn will trump some of your other social media if someone was to search for you on Google. So that is kind of what this looks like and how you can engage on here. But you also, in the search feature, you can search for companies, schools, groups, different things that you can follow so that you start seeing that content for you to be able to engage with. Okay. Okay. Next, I'm going to talk about the job search feature on here. Aside from Handshake, which you all have access to use for internships and job searching, I usually recommend LinkedIn as kind of the next place to go for searching for internships and jobs because it just has a lot that's on here and it's pretty easy to navigate. So if you've never used the job search feature, the first thing that I would recommend that you do is to access the career interest button on here and go set up your career interest so that you start to see jobs recommended to you that you're interested in. And it just kind of helps customize the content that you see that gets automatically generated for you. So you can see, as I look at my job preferences, what you can do is you can put in like types of job titles that you might be interested in. So right now I just have 2 in there. I have Associate Director of Career Services, which is like my current job title, and I would still be interested in those types of positions. And then a next step for me might be a Director of Career Services. So that is also a job title I've put in here. And then right now, these are the job locations I have. I'm probably looking to stay local for a while. So I have Lancaster, Athens, Columbus, and Parkersburg. Like those are kind of the locations that I would be interested in seeing jobs for. And then right now I'm only interested in full-time or remote jobs. Not really interested in anything part-time, volunteer, internships, those kinds of things. But you can kind of make your preferences based on that. And then you can choose who you want to see these preferences. Right now I have these open only to recruiters. But you can also make them open to all your LinkedIn connections, which I would recommend as a student that's actively job searching. I'm not actively job searching, so I'm not really that worried about this preferences thing. But for you, I would make it open so that if you are engaging with alumni, they also can see your job preferences and they might send you something, okay, based on that. So that's what those preferences look like. So definitely use that feature and fill that out. And then if we go back to the jobs tab, this is where you search for internships and jobs. And there's lots of filters that you can use. Basically, what you do is you start with just a search. So does somebody want to just give me something to search, an idea of a career or a job that you might be interested in? Don't be shy.
You can use me if you want.
Sure, okay. What could I search for you?
Okay, I mean, you know what I'm doing. I'm their intern, so I'm looking for a career in student affairs. That either relates to Greek life or career coaching or programming.
Okay, let's look at career coaching because that's my favorite thing. Okay, so let's use career coach. And do you have like a location that you're interested in?
No.
Okay.
Whatever you want to pick.
So we'll just do United States for now. Okay, so.
Oh, there's a job here. Oh.
Yeah, College of Business. Okay, so that's a big return. So you got over 11,000 results. So what I would suggest that you do, because I think it'd be really hard to look through 11,000 results. So I would suggest using some filters. So it gives you some filters here that you can use. There's also more advanced filters here, okay? So I would probably go in here and I would say, I only want to look at things that were posted in the last month, like maybe I'm just feeling that. And maybe you only want to look at full-time positions because you want to see what's out there. And then, let's see, experience level, we'll say for you entry level, right? So like let's narrow it down to just entry level and apply that. Okay, that is much more reasonable, I think, because now we have 940 results to look through instead of 11,000. You may still want to narrow it down more than that. And I would say the easiest way to do that is by location. So if most people do typically have like a location they may be targeting, or like a region that they're targeting, so narrowing it down to that will really help you with your search. And what you can also do is turn on a job alert. So like if this was like, if I had put in this search and I want to see anytime a job that fits that filter criteria pops up, I can turn on this job alert. And maybe I want to see something every day, maybe I want to see something every week. If I were to save that, anytime a job that gets posted on LinkedIn that fits with those search terms, I'm going to get an email about that. I don't want that, so I'm going to put cancel. But that's one way that you can do this. They've actually changed what this looks like, and I personally think it's like a little bit confusing to look at. But over here is like all of the jobs that popped up for you. And then this over here is actually the job description of the job that you've selected to look at. So don't let that confuse you, but like if we clicked on this, it would change and show us this position here. Okay, so something to pay attention to that I'll just point out right now is that if you're applying for a position, so like if you were going to apply at West Coast University, and we click on this, this is telling us that there's some alumni here. Okay, so you may want to click on this to see who are the alumni that are working in that area there, and you may want to connect with them to get some information. So that's a really cool thing about job searching on LinkedIn, is that you can see other alumni you have there, or if I had any connections there, those would also show up. I don't, so it's not showing up, but if I did, it would. Okay, so you can see like University of Texas at Dallas, I have 6 connections there from OU. Okay. Great features on here for job searching. I don't have a ton of time to like really dive into it, but I would just start using it and playing around with it, and you'll kind of figure out the ins and outs of how to use this tool. Okay. Any questions about the job search feature? Okay. Yes.
The easy apply function, can you tell us about
Easy
that?
apply. Like
yes.
right here?
So some jobs have, some jobs have an easy apply.
Did you see that on any of these? Oh, easy apply.
Yeah.
You know what? To be honest with you, I'm actually not familiar with that feature.
Do you think that it means that you can apply directly through the website? Like you hit easy apply, and if you have a resume uploaded, it'll automatically submit information?
Yeah, that's what it means. It actually asks you to upload a resume, but I was wondering if you have any other insights.
Yeah, I think that's a newer feature, and I appreciate that question because I'll have to research that a little bit. I'm not super familiar with that, but I would imagine it is something where you already have your information kind of put into LinkedIn or a resume uploaded, and you just could choose that to apply. But I'll have to research that a little bit. That's a good question. Okay, anything else on the job search features? Okay, next I'm going to move into showing you how to use the Alumni Tool. This is my favorite thing about LinkedIn, and sometimes I just do this in my free time because I think it's really cool. So if you want to be as nerdy as me, you can do this, but how to get to the Alumni Tool, all you do is you go to the search bar and you type in Ohio University. And you want to go to our Ohio University school page. This is great because even to like be looking at our page and kind of be invested in what's going on at Ohio University, and you can read about alumni and events that are coming up and some really cool stuff that students are doing. But what I want to show you is how to use the Alumni Tool. So what you do is you go to this menu on the left hand and click on Alumni. And then you can use all of these filters to narrow down alumni in the system. So what are some reasons that you think you might want to use this tool to find an alum to connect with? Anything you can think of? Yeah.
If they have a job that you'd be interested in, contacting them about how they, like their process of getting the job.
Exactly. So if you have a job that they're interested in, contacting them about the process that they took or the route that they took to get that job, that's a good reason. Even if you don't want to connect with alumni, you can use this tool to say, hey, I am a history major and I want to move to LA. I wonder if there's any alumni that were history majors in LA and what are they doing with their degree? Okay, so you can almost use this for your own research, which is really cool. Lots of things you can do. Maybe you want to move to a specific location, so you want to see if there's any alumni there that you could connect with. Okay, maybe you know there's exactly this one, you've always wanted to work for Nike. How many OU alumni are at Nike? Okay, lots of cool things you can do on here. So to use this as an example, let's say we want to go to what they studied and look at something on here. Let's click on psychology just because it's an arts and sciences major. We can click on that. That's going to narrow us down from over 160,000 alumni on here to 6,000. Okay, so we're getting closer to being able to actually look at what some people are doing. And then let's say I've always wanted to live in Chicago. And I'm just wondering, like, what are alumni that have a psychology degree living in Chicago, what are they doing? Okay, so I can scroll down and I can start to kind of look at and read what types of work that they're doing. And it's all kinds of different stuff, which is cool. Okay, and this person, Ashley, is doing developmental and infant mental health specialist. Okay, interesting. I didn't even know that there were infant mental health specialists. Like, I didn't even know that was a job. But maybe if I was a psychology major, that's really interesting to me, right? So I might be like, oh, So click on Ashley. Want to look at her profile. Then I can start to look at, well, how did she get from being an OU student that majored in psychology to this job, right? And so I can start to look at where she had some of her experience. Okay, so she did AmeriCorps, she did some national service, then she was a social worker for a few years, and now she's this infant health specialist in Chicago at the Erickson Institute. So it's really cool. You can kind of see like what her path was. And then I'm like, oh, I wonder like if we have anything in common. So you can come down and look at where she got her degree. And maybe you were in some of the same societies as her, okay? Something else that's interesting about her profile is that she's a licensed social worker, okay? So if this is something you're interested in, this might tell you, okay, I might have to get a social work license and get my, my master's in social work or something to be able to have this type of job. So it really helps you do some research. And then let's say I'm just like super interested in her career, I would probably message her and try to connect with her and set up a phone call for an informational interview. So can you start to see how you can use this tool to help you maximize some of the research that you're doing in your job search and to really build connections? Okay. I'm going to go back to the tool just because I want to show you there's some other filters. So where they live, where they work, what they studied is a really good one, but then you might even narrow down to what they do. So like if I knew that I was psych, I want to move to Chicago, but I really want to do research, like that's all I want to do. Maybe I would click this, and then that's going to narrow me down to 9 people that I could reach out to. Okay, so really cool stuff. There's also what they're skilled at, so you can put some of those connections in, all kinds of things. But again, to be able to access this, you need to make sure you have that you're an Ohio University student in your profile. And for me, I can even change this and go look at Ohio State's and do all of that stuff, okay? So this is the Alumni Tool. And then I want to talk about messaging connections because we sort of left off on that. But what do you say or what do you do when you're actually sending a connection message? And really, there's no really right or wrong way. The only thing that you don't want to do is just send the request, like the generic request, okay? Because if you connect with someone on LinkedIn and you don't customize your message, they get a message, and you've probably gotten these because you all have LinkedIn, but they just say, Jody Pavel invited you to connect on LinkedIn, okay? And if they don't know anything about you or know who you are, they might deny your request. I accept most people on LinkedIn if I can like figure out how we have a connection. So like I'll never deny an OU student because I think, well, maybe they want to meet with me for coaching and they want to see my profile, whatever. But if it's like a completely random person that works for a consulting company in Illinois that I have no idea who they are and they send me a random request, I usually just ignore it because I don't see any point in being connected with them. So you don't want that to happen to you, so you want to customize your connection request. These are just some little kind of tips or topics that you can talk about in that connection request. So first of all, have a reason to connect. Know what you sort of want to get from that conversation. And again, don't send that blank invitation to connect, okay? Something you can do is share what you have in common. So this is great if you're connecting with an Ohio alumni. Point that out. Say, I noticed that you graduated from OU from the psych program in 2011. I'm actually getting ready to graduate in 2020. You know, so point out that general connection. Maybe you saw that they were in the same, they worked for the Post and you work for the Post. Okay, so point out that thing you have in common. Maybe it's a mutual acquaintance you have. So maybe you saw that you're both connected with a professor. You could say something about that. You don't want to just start asking for things on your first contact, like, are there any jobs available in your company? Okay, that's way too eager. You haven't even built this connection. You want to start with something a little smaller first and actually build some sort of genuine relationship. But you do want to give a next step, and that might be something about, could we set up a time to talk about your experience in XYZ field, or what it was like for you to go from being a student to an alumni. So you want to give them a next step, and maybe it's just like, I would love to stay connected with you to kind of follow your journey or your career path, okay? Whatever it is, you want to give them some kind of next step. With all of this said, you have to be concise because on your first end message, you get a character limit, and I can't remember what it is, but basically you can write like 3 or 4 sentences. Okay, so you do kind of have to get to your point and get good at that. But once they've accepted your request, you can send them much more detailed messages. Okay, so really good thing to do. I highly recommend. With networking, you sort of have to just put yourself out there. And it's kind of weird and scary, and it can be weird to kind of contact a stranger or these cold connections. But the Bobcat family, or the Bobcat like community, is very strong. And so that's why connecting with alumni on something like LinkedIn is really a smart thing to do. Okay, so that is, I believe, my information for you. And I want to make sure everyone did sign in. If you did not get the sign-in sheet, we have that here. But with that, what questions are there for me related to LinkedIn or using it to network? Yeah.
So it's more of a website to send you to, like if you're using it to look for a job, it will like send you to the right place to apply for said job. Not all of them will be applying directly through LinkedIn.
Okay, that's a great question. So the question was, it's more of a site to filter you to where to apply for a job. Not all of them will be directly applying through LinkedIn. Yes. So some of them they will be set up where you just directly apply through LinkedIn. You upload all your materials there. I would say most of them that I see, students applying for, or even ones I've applied for myself, they actually send you externally to the company's website or the school's webpage or whatever that might be to apply. So basically when you click that apply button, that's when you find out what the process is going to be. Or really read through the job description. A lot of times there's a section in the job description that says how to apply. That's a great question. Okay. What other questions do you all have? Okay. If there's nothing else, I would truly encourage you to follow up with a CLDC career coach. Again, you can schedule that through Handshake. If you log into your Handshake, there's a button at the top that says appointments, and if you click on that, you'll see, you click appointment, you click schedule appointment, and then it just kind of takes you step by step through the process to schedule. Appointments are 30 minutes, and if you want to talk about LinkedIn, or if you take some time today and you build your LinkedIn profile and you want to have a coach check it, we would absolutely love to do that and kind of work with you on how to even take more steps in maximizing that account. So thank you. I hope that I will see you at the alumni reception on Thursday. And then also there is a STEAM panel tomorrow. So anybody interested in hearing from some alumni that are working in any of the STEAM fields, that's tomorrow evening. So hope to see you at some of those events. Thank you.